From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, a show about Star Wars pop culture and the ultimate adventure, life itself. We've all had a lot of life in the last week or so. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
I'm Ken Napzok. Life has been lived. Happy to be here.
Oh, life has been lived. I love that. This time, Jennifer Landa. I was going with the alliteration. Sorry.
Life has been lived. It sounds like a really beautiful Hallmark sentiment, and also something like a Jedi might mutter as they are as they become one with the Force. Anyway, Acolyte's still on my mind. Life has been lived. Anyway, this is our breaking news episode, and in the tradition of actual breaking news, we just got some new book news right before we started broadcasting. We were going to be talking books anyway with the Comic-Con announcement of a bunch of new books tied to the Acolyte, and we just got an announcement of new books tied to the first year of the Empire's reign. We'll be discussing that in more details, but we want to let you know that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. This week, we're recommending Alphabet Squadron, the entire trilogy. Get them all on us, because Alexander Freed is one of the authors who is involved in the new reign of the Empire trilogy. More on that in a moment. To download your free audiobook or audiobooks multiple, go to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. One more time, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audiobook. Ken, any audiobook thoughts?
I love those that can listen to audiobooks and pay attention. I can't, so this is why I want you to try out the ForceCenter deal. Get in there. Try Alphabet Squadron. It is a very, very good series of books.
That's a very good point. I don't think any of us listen to audiobooks for various reasons, none negative toward audiobooks. Nope. But we need you to listen to audiobooks because it really helps us if you use this link. And then when we are randomly wondering on an episode of like, hey, I wonder what that character's accent is like in the audiobook, then we have kind ForceCenter listeners who can answer immediately what strange accent the character has. All right, we're getting on to our asks. Ken, you want to grab the asks?
I do want to grab an ask. And hey, look, August 1st is right around the corner. Can 20 of you find it in your heart to subscribe to our YouTube channel? That's right. We have a goal of 9,500 subs by August 1st. We are right on that doorstep. So while you're looking up, I'm sure a lot of you are looking up your Major League Baseball trade deadline news on July 31st. Deadline's at midnight Eastern. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel here so we can continue growing, developing the YouTube side of our organization. We're always going to be a podcast and a podcast at heart, but we love exploring what's going on YouTube. It's this new thing that's just beginning. Come see my pink sleeves and beanies over here on the video side. Subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss an episode or a live stream, and we'll have announcements on more in August. So there you go. That's our ask.
That is a great ask, and we want to acknowledge our previous ask that we were trying to get to 10,000 subscribers by the end of the Acolyte. We always knew that was a big grasp, but in making that big grasp, we found a lot of new subscribers, so thank you to everyone who has joined us during the Acolyte adventure. That leads us to our lives that we have lived and are not done living. Jennifer, did you have any Star Wars or life adventures this past week?
No, I've been studying so hard, you guys. It's been so difficult. I'm carrying flashcards everywhere I go. I've just taken tests, written assignments. I can't wait to hear your adventures and Ken's adventures because it sounds like you all lived life to the fullest. So take it away.
Well, you're living life to the fullest by pursuing like a dream. You're going back to school. It's not like you're just like I had some coffee and malaise for a week. You're active. You're doing something. You're venturing into the unknown.
Yes, this is true. It is a new dream with a lot of challenges, but it's exciting to learn about how language works, how our brain works, and yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I just want to point out, if you spent the week learning how our brains work, I don't think that goes along with, I didn't do much. I just learned how brains work.
My brain is not working. That's why I'm so tired.
Fair enough. Ken, you had, I'm sure, many adventures that I don't even know about, but I also know you had an exploration into the depth of Comic-Con.
Yeah, look, I'm gonna be honest. No, not as much. This is why you're in the main event tonight, Joseph. You've got a lot of stories. Yeah, I did head down to San Diego. Got a comedy show down there Thursday night. American Comedy Company. It was a lot of fun. Great show. Thanks to those that came out. Had a show Saturday night back in Burbank. That was also a lot of fun. Thanks to those that came out to that. But yeah, I went down to Comic-Con for 24 hours. A little road trip with our buddy Joe Starr. And you know what? I have learned 10 years into this. I do love Comic-Con. I do love going down to San Diego. I have learned that maybe I don't love it as much as I used to. Like that, the era has passed a bit, and I had a lot of fun spending one day there and getting in the car and still dealing with 4 hours of traffic, but getting on out of there. But it was a lot of fun to see folks. Star Wars obviously didn't have as big as a presence there. Here and they're not going to have as big as a presence at D23. So, there wasn't the big pop of Star Wars news like there had in the past. I know Marvel once again stole the show there. I did see the Galactus drone face in the sky. I was waiting to try to get into a party I was on a list for but was denied entry to. So maybe that's also why I'm not enjoying Comic-Con as much as I used to. The age of, I saw you on that show. Get on up here. That ain't happening anymore. So it was a lot of fun, though. Overall, got to see some good friends, and that was kind of it. But I do want to say I had a Star Wars adventure when I got back into town. I have been in 25-minute chunks watching Solo as my cardio warm-up movie. And hot damn, I already loved it. We're fans of the movie here. I don't know what it is. It's suddenly like my favorite thing ever. Like I'm just so enjoying the movie and going back in and the performances, the way it was shot, the way it looks, the way it feels, the whip bang, whiz bang, and whip bang, pulp adventure of it all, where like you could clock it every 10 minutes. There's a new oopsie we got to get in and out of. And it's just been such a fun revisit for me. So I want to shout out that specifically as a Star Wars adventure for me.
Yeah, we got a question coming up from a patron, and it's something that we have been talking about in general, that there are many facets to Star Wars. But I think just because of the nature of what shows have moved forward in the last couple of years, we spent a lot of times with traumatized characters, with pensive characters, with tortured characters, with sort of regal or stiff characters. So going back to just Han Solo is incredibly charming as he, F's up through the galaxy beat by beat is so fun and such a great, I think, not contrast to some of the other extremes of Star Wars storytelling that we've had.
Yeah, I'll save it for that question then, but I can tell you I had about 5 or 6 different conversations in less than 24 hours of people who were kind of like, I just want to have some fun again and not have stoic, depressed characters. And I got to admit, I'm kind of there too.
Yeah, I think we've talked a long time about the Star Wars buffet, and I think they've put out a lot of delicious dishes. But having just come back from a vacation where I ate at a lot of buffets, you need some variety in the buffet. If it's just 8 different kinds of meat, that's not really a buffet. That's just 8 different kinds of meat. And I think the Star Wars buffet needs some fresh vegetables.
Yes. Skeleton crew.
Skeleton crew, yeah.
Skeleton crew. Yeah.
Bring on the Skeleton Crew, or at least maybe some Skeleton Crew news. That would be fun too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those are great Star Wars and life adventures, Ken. And I'm sorry that Galactus appeared to have devoured your invitation to the party.
It was fun. It was worth it.
This is great. It was really fun to see a little bit of Comic-Con from afar and feel happy for the people who go to Comic-Con every year and for just kind of the genre culture, that it seemed like Comic-Con was back with those big announcements that were thrilling people for Star Trek and Marvel and big appearances and Doctor Who. And it was great to feel that vicarious thrill and also go, I have no need to be there myself, but I'm happy for the community.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, on to other adventures. I'm starting a timer so I keep it short because I could go on and on. I'll post about it and I'll write blogs and stuff. But I had a wonderful family trip to Norway. I have a lot of Norwegian heritage, and I've always been sort of conflicted about it because growing up in Minnesota, everything about being Scandinavian was kind of made into a cute joke. Like Vikings should be interesting, but that just turned into wear a dopey fake horn hat and talk about the football people. That being Norwegian means being polite and repressed and eating weird creamy fish, often out of poverty. Eat your poverty fish and get burned in the sun and don't talk about your feelings. congratulations, you're Norwegian, was the cultural vibe that I grew up with in Minnesota. So I was really interested to be able to explore actual Norwegian culture and realize that I should not have rejected that part of myself because that was the 20th century Minnesotan weird filter of Norwegian that I received as a child. And I'm sure other people received incredibly different things, and I'm happy for them. But anyway, long story short, we took a cruise and went into the gorgeous Norwegian fjords. I read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and read about Slarty Bart Fast making the fjords. They're so beautiful. We went to a lot of museums, Monk Museum in particular. Went to Viking museums and saw like actual swords and helmets and beautiful gold that the Vikings stole and never gave back from 2,000 years ago. The Norwegian culture, their myth is trolls, and trolls can manifest in any way. They can be like kind giant souls who want to come to your party. They can be like dark forces that you do not mess with. They can be, monsters in the sea who want you actively to drown for invading their space. They're sort of like this catch-all for myths. So the Star Wars adventure that I ended up having is just this great feeling that what I value about Star Wars and what a lot of us talk about is it's pulled explicitly and also just sort of subliminally from so many different cultural ideas that are just about this exploration of who are we, why are we here? So I kept seeing Star Wars ideas in all of this great culture of Norway that was so much to me about exploration and about the sort of need to head into nature. A lot of the troll myths and a lot of the paintings from Munch and this artist Kittleston are literally pictures of children staring at the dark forest, knowing they have to go in there. And like, that is so Star Wars and in tales about like, it's terrifying in there, but there might be gold and I have to go in. And that was so the feeling, the mood. It was, these old, Norwegian paintings were basically a painting of, Rey with the helmet on, looking out into the distance, Luke on the horizon, all that great stuff. So I really, really felt the Star Wars of it. The final thing was in the Monk Museum, there was a whole display. Edward Monk, if anybody isn't like, hey, yeah, I love art history, is famous for painting the Scream. But he painted all sorts of other work, including he was obsessed with this theory of, I believe it's called crystallization, where the idea that nature wasn't alive in a sort of metaphorical way. Like it was really alive, like a rock was aware, like I'm alive and Ted's walking on me now and I'm looking over there at Steve, like really, really alive. And it got me thinking about all the great Kyber crystal stuff that we saw in the Acolyte and in other places. So it was really interesting. Without being explicit, I very much felt the presence of Star Wars in this really rewarding trip.
It's beautiful stuff. I would expect nothing less than an eloquent description of what you experienced there. And I saw your wonderful photos, and I was downright happy for you and Sarah, and jealous as well, because it just seemed like, what it seemed like? It just seemed like fresh and relaxing.
I
looked at your Instagram photos and went, I feel that.
It was great. The only thing that wasn't relaxing about it was that there was too much, wonderful things to do. So I was very happy about it. And go ahead.
The only question I have, though, beautiful stuff. The only question I have, Joseph, 7-Eleven or 7-Eleven equivalents?
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. Norway loves fish, trolls, and 7-Eleven. Apparently, in the same amount. I was at like 7 different towns, verging from the biggest city, Oslo, to like tiny villages north of the Arctic Circle. All had multiple 7-Elevens. They advertised everywhere the 7-Eleven burger. The 7-Eleven closest to one of our hotels sold clothing, Hawaiian shirt themed underwear with big, beautiful, colorful leaves, and then hiding in the leaves, hot dogs and slices of pizza from 7-Eleven. It was a 7-Eleven bounty. And the only reason I didn't post about it, Ken, is your 7-Eleven branding has become so strong that it is frankly kind of annoying for me to post about it on social media, because the only response I will get would be like, "Why are you posting about this and not Ken? You should
Look,
tell Ken." And like,
all they got for me is better coffee than Starbucks. But now you're telling me there's underpants available? There's underpants available?
There's Norwegian 7-Eleven underpants available.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. Okay.
I want it.
Thanks. Asked and answered. I'm heading there. I'm heading there now.
You gotta go. You can see the fjords and the 7-Eleven underwear. There you go. All right. Any other thoughts on life adventures before we dive into the Star Wars?
No,
news?
absolutely beautiful. I'm so happy you got to go.
I'm extremely, extremely lucky, and thank you all for letting me take a little bit more time to share some of my experiences there. So moving on to our main topic of breaking news from a long time ago, we're going to slide this in front of our discussion of the Acolyte Books because it was just announced a new series of books called A Reign of the Empire. Books will be released, it looks like, in 2025, 2026, and 2027. Written by Alexander Freed, who wrote the Alphabet Squadron trilogy, Rebecca Rowanhorse, who wrote Resistance Reborn, I believe,
Yeah,
the title, and Fran Wilde, who wrote a story in the recent Return of the Jedi from a Certain Point of View collection that I don't believe any of us have read at this point. But congratulations to Fran Wilde. Here is the description of it from the press release. Before the rebellion, the Empire reigned. In order to ensure the security and continuing stability, the Republic will be reorganized into the First Galactic Empire for a safe and secure society. With one speech and thunderous applause, Chancellor Palpatine brought the era of the Republic crashing down. In its place rose the Galactic Empire. Across the galaxy, people rejoiced and celebrated the end to war and the promise of tomorrow. But that tomorrow was a lie. Instead, the galaxy became twisted by the cruelty and fear of the Emperor's rule. During that terrifying first year of tyranny, Mon Mothma, Saw Gerrera, and Bail Organa faced the encroaching darkness. One day, they will be 3 architects of the Rebel Alliance. But first, each must find purpose and direction in a changing galaxy while harboring their own secrets, fears, and hopes for a future that may never come unless they act. Great blurb. Ken, what are your big picture thoughts and reactions to this?
Love this announcement this morning. This actually gets me pretty excited, which I'll acknowledge up top, like with Alexander Freed writing the first book, this might get a little crunchy, right? This might not be what I was just talking about, what I want on maybe the film and TV side, which is a little bit more fun, zippy adventure. I don't think this is going to be that, but I absolutely love that. I love this era, as I've said for years now. We've obviously got a lot of content. Dare I say the C word with the capital C. Got a lot of shows and stuff in this era, and maybe people want to move to other eras, which is why I think I kind of like this as a book. Like, if this was announced as the new animated series, I'd be in heaven. But I understand that not everyone would. This is where I want to spend some time on these books. I love this idea. This could get really, really intriguing, exciting, tense, and getting into the hearts and minds and souls of these characters in book form is something I'm excited about right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Jennifer, what's your reaction to this era, to these books?
I really love the cover of Mon Mothma. It's so striking, and this is the type of book where I actually could see myself reading on a summer vacation if I read and had a summer vacation. But but yeah, like, it just looks like it's going to be fun. And I don't know anything about Alexander Freed. I know that you all have talked about him and his work previously. So I'm excited because you all are excited. And in terms of the era, it's one of those things where I always love this era. I feel comfortable with it. I feel like I'm going to know the main characters, and that always is helpful for me, because when I'm listening to an audiobook, I can't, like Lords of the Sith, which I tried, because I'm like, I need to see the names. I need to see all the different planets, right? For me to really crystallize that information, I need the visual. But with something like this could be a great audiobook.
Yeah. That's a great point. Of this one might be a little bit more. I don't know. I'm trying to find the right word for what would be good about it in audio. Maybe just because it has it's going to be political intrigue and has a little bit more depth to bring you in, as opposed to focusing on the action.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really happy about this. I love how much they have developed this era. And I know scanning quickly, they mentioned that, inspired by the success of Andor, we're doing this. I think it's fascinating that after, years since people threw down their lightsabers in a fury because there was tax negotiations in a Star Wars movie, we've moved so far from being afraid of the political element of Star Wars to embracing, we want gritty adult storytelling about how did this actually happen? Why did this happen? When you find yourself caught in tyranny, how do you shovel your way out? How do you cope when we're not going to solve this in a day? We have to hold on to hope that it can be solved someday. And we have to work toward solving it, and choosing to set it in this Bad Batch era where everybody around them isn't fully aware how horribly the boot of oppression is already on their neck. And these are people who are probably like, the I feel like I'm taking crazy pills meme of like, can't you all see what's happening? Gives it a really interesting psychological perspective. Other thing that's really interesting to me about this, and I think we'll talk about it more with the Acolyte, is I feel like early in Disney publishing, it was just sort of a let's try different things, let's tell different stories, let's jump around the timeline. Now they seem to be getting pretty responsive and reactive to the storytelling that's already been going on in on the television and film side. And in particular with this is I really love Andor, but one thing that I walked away with is I felt like the television show Andor recentered the rebellion to be brutal Luthen Rael's idea, at least in terms of sort of it didn't state that, and it's totally subjective, but I feel like it's implied. And I wonder if there's a publishing desire to say, yep, Luthen's a part of it. We're not fighting with Andor, but let's recenter Mon bleeping Mothma, the lone light in the Dark Senate on that cover. Let's recenter Saw Gerrera and see how somebody can be broken by the fight. Let's recenter Bail Organa, one of the original heroes, of Star Wars. That's really interesting to me to say. Let's refocus on these characters. Ken, any thoughts on that?
I love what you're saying, and I think you and I are in agreement. And maybe it's more of something. I don't know. Maybe it's something we'd revisit, and we'll see where Andor season 2 goes. I think you and I both, Jen. I just don't want to pull you in yet, in case this is a fire starter that you could just stand inside and watch. I love the character of Luthen Rael. I love Stellan Skarsgård's performance. I love that speech too. I just think he's more of a villain inside the rebellion than people want to admit. Not a villain like he's wearing a dark cape and a red blade, but just his tactics, his way is kind of what Cassian rejects in Rogue One. We didn't know that character yet. They didn't. Tony Gilroy probably didn't know Luthen Rael yet. This was Rogue One. This was years ago. But I think when Cassian decides to not shoot Galen Erso, that's one of the things he's doing, rejecting what he's been taught. Luthen Rael is the one that seems to be pulling him in and teaching him. And yes, the balance is tipped in Luthen's favor in Andor, and I understand why. Mothma's great. She has position and power in the Scorn Rebellion, but she seems to be a little behind the 8 ball, needing Luthen. And yes, it's subjective, and maybe people would disagree with you and I, Joseph, but I was always felt like, wait, hold on, this is Mothma's rebellion. And it's shared too, by the way, because I think Bail Organa should have been in season 1 as well. Give me some more Jimmy Smits. So anyways, all to say, this isn't to talk bad about Luthen. This doesn't take away anyone's inspiration from Luthen, because I know a lot of people who do take inspiration from him in that speech. He is a spectacular character, wonderfully performed. But what you're talking about, Joseph, is why I'm excited for this pitch and this series, and for Alexander Freed. I keep saying, hey, he's a crunchy writer. That just means he's very detailed. The Alphabet Squadron was spent so many times inside the hearts and broken souls of those rebels that this, I think, it's perfect for what they could explore in year 1 of the Empire. And the series is, I think, going to jump in time as the other authors come on in. But, it's that Bad Batch era. I'm not expecting Bad Batch era, those characters to show up, but that solitary clone episode vibe, maybe even more than the Outpost episode, it could be what kind of shows up in these books. And as you can tell, I'm excited. I think I strayed off the path of your question, Joseph, but I'm excited to see Mothma front and center.
Yeah, well, I'll stray off even more. I think a word that we used a lot when we talked about Alexander Freed's writing is visceral. He writes pain. really well. He wrote the Rogue One novelization as well, I believe.
Yes,
so
he
he's
did.
very tied to these
Totally forgot that. Yes, he did.
ideas, and seeing him tackle Mothma, great. But Saw Gerrera's in a really interesting place too, because he's so close to the death of his sister, the loss of his sister, and he's so close to that. I was right. The Republic claimed they just wanted to help, and now they're immediately a tyranny, and I was right. That's all visceral, interesting stuff to write. And we know from that little Tales of the Jedi segment with Bail Organa recruiting Ahsoka that, like, at Padme's funeral, he's already like, there's work to be done and you're needed. So a really proactive character is fascinating too. Jennifer, how do you feel about this book series as a possible in conversation with Andor and the story of the rebellion?
You know, I'm as you guys were talking, I'm like trying to remember where the characters have showed up and like how this is all going to connect, right? So I'm like thinking of, I'm like, I just saw Jimmy Smits. Oh, that's right. He was in Kenobi, right? With young Leia. Okay. And obviously we've seen Clone Wars, and obviously Rogue One and Mon Mothma. So I was like, oh, this is great. Cause like you're saying, these characters are kind of floating about. And I guess I had not really thought about Luthen being propped up as being like the kind of central force behind the rebellion, but this is really stating the claim, like these three people are the architects, right, of the rebellion. It's really solidifying that. We already know that, but it's like it's for the newbies, for the newbies and the people like me that have forgotten a little bit. It's like, here we are. These are the three that we need to focus on, and these are the stories that are going to be the most interesting to tell. So yeah, I like it. That really helps me remember everything.
Yeah, no, it's a lot, and these books will touch on lots and lots of different storytelling. And if these books kind of tell a story of like, here are some of the characters, maybe Luthen's even in this, that start the rebellion, that the rebellion starts to kind of falter and peter out, and Luthen grabs it and gets aggressive with it and says we have to push it forward, which I feel like is a story of Andor of like, yep, it's moving, but it's moving too slow, so I'm going to start blowing crap up literally to light a fire under this thing. And then the story goes on to be that he continues down that sort of dark and destructive version of rebellion. And Mothma and Bail like, let's take this back. We can fight and still be noble.
Yeah,
it would be a great arc of the story of the rebellion to me.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll do a deeper dive into the character Luthen Rael, because it's a character you and I both love. I really like what your take on that there too. Don't want to say he's diminished. He's very important. And again, wonderfully performed, magnificently performed. Loved him. But yeah, this is this is the Mothma that gives the speech in Rebels. This is her rebellion, and you got Saw causing problems. I'm excited. I totally forgot about Alexander Free writing the Rogue One novelization, which is a spectacular novelization. Has so many great things in that book.
I just remember reading that, and that when Jin climbs the long ladder to get to Galen, being like, in the movie, it's like, yeah, a hero climbed a ladder. What? In the book, it's sort of like, every finger feels like it's broken. My back is screaming. My legs are jelly. And like, just really made you feel the reality of what the characters are going through on a visceral, physical, and emotional level.
Yeah, and Jin walking back into Saw's partisan headquarters, and everyone looking at her like, where have you been? Because people died since you left. Why did you leave us? Saw not telling him. Oh, chef's kiss. Great stuff.
Yeah, great stuff.
When does Andor season 2 come out?
I think
this now makes me think around this book. Sorry,
around this book time. That'll be interesting. That'll be interesting to see, because Mon Mothma to me was one of the best parts of Andor. I loved her storyline, so that'll be interesting to see that play out, and then this book. So 2025, 2020, yeah.
Maybe Genevieve O'Reilly will read the book. That'd be great.
I do hope we get Perrin in the book.
Oh, please. Lots and lots of Perrin content and lots of building out of the Chandrillan sort of very traditional ways. It should be great.
So
great.
Much.
All right. Moving on to the news we were going to discuss about the Acolyte books. This is news coming out of Comic-Con. Lucasfilm, made a small ripple rather than a big splash. There's some exciting publishing news all tied to the Acolyte. There's some other book and video game news as well, but we're going to focus on this. There's going to be an Art of the Acolyte book by Kristen Baver, an Acolyte visual guide by Pablo Hidalgo, in 2 novels, an untitled young adult novel starring Yord and Jecki by Tessa Gratton, and an adult novel about Vernestra Rowe in Indara called Wayseeker, written by Justina Ireland. Of note, Justina Ireland wrote the initial formative steps of Ernestra Rowe into middle reader books, really introduced the galaxy to that character. We'll dive in deeper on specifics, but Jennifer, what's your overall reaction to the Acolyte immediately jumping into publishing? I know you're a huge fan of the show. Do you feel like this is a positive thing for the show, that it's immediately a big launch of a big publishing initiative?
I would even argue I would have liked it if it was released right now. Like, I feel like the audience, like myself, we're just coming off of the show. I want to see more of these characters. I don't want to wait to find out if there's a season 2. Give me the book. If I were to see that in Barnes and Noble, any of these books, I'd be like, I'd grab it. So I appreciate that they are continuing, these characters and things like that. I do wish it was a little bit sooner, whatever, but it does feel like a natural extension because of the High Republic ties, obviously. So yeah, it makes sense that they're going to capitalize on the show's success and kind of already the built-in literary audience.
Yeah, it was really exciting to me as full circle, and with from publishing to live action back to publishing. And obviously these books were decided upon, long before the end of the show. They didn't just pull these out of thin air. So that's really exciting to me. I agree with you about even closer would be better. The time lag on the publishing side and the action figure side continues to be a bit of a bummer for me, of like, can we just have Summer of Kenobi where the figures are out? The first episode drops and so do a bunch of action figures, and they're getting a little bit better on the publishing and the action figure side, but I would take it even to be even faster, of like, what if this book was available to pre-order the day after Acolyte came out, the Ernestra Rowe one? You could just slam that purchase button right then. Ken, what are your overall thoughts?
I think this is really smart. This makes a lot of sense for a series tied to the High Republic because it's technically in the High Republic era. This is a big win, and I'm also happy that these two authors get a chance to swing through there, and that Justina Ireland gets to continue the story with her character and addressing in a way that we know what happens or know the direction of the character, and even some of the depressing sad things about the character's 116 year existence versus her 16th year of life. I think it's kind of rare in this industry that an author who creates a character gets to continue the character story after it's kind of moved into other mediums, right? That doesn't happen as much. And I think with this High Republic era, the authors did such a good job of building out not just out the era itself, but the personalities and the hopes and dreams that we all as fans have for them. We keep saying, almost like a broken record, I personally have not picked up the High Republic Phase 2 and beyond just of a time issue. I know, Joseph, you've gone on ahead a bit before, but the High Republic era being full of just some of the most passionate Star Wars fans. It reminds me of that Rebels subset of Star Wars fans. That just like that's their either introduction to Star Wars or it is their Star Wars. And we felt that at Anaheim specifically, when some of the stuff at Star Wars Celebration Anaheim just was like, look at these Rebels fans go. That's the same with the High Republic era. So I'm happy for them. It's something I'm going to be taking a swing at maybe if I ever catch up with their other High Republic books. And the YAs, Star Wars YA novels of the last few years have been some of my favorite, and that includes High Republic. So I'm looking forward to that just existing.
Yeah, do not sleep on the YA novels. They are really great, and often because of the nature of YA novels that want to wrestle with difficult coming of age things, they're often, frankly, more violent, more tortured, more intense even than the adult novels, because they're dealing with the hard questions of coming of age.
Yep.
And I'm also excited about the visual guide and the art of it's really the full treatment, which is great to see. The biggest bit of connective tissue to the Acolyte show looks like it will be the adult novel Wayseeker. I'm going to read the synopsis and then we can discuss. Before the Acolyte, Ernestra Rowe must find her place in the Jedi Order. Ernestra Rowe has spent over a decade exploring the Outer Rim as a Wayseeker, answering to no other authority but the Force itself. When a request from the Jedi Council orders her back to Coruscant, Ernestra initially refuses, feeling that her first priority should be to the beings she's already serving. But after Jedi Master Indara arrives to ask for Vernestra's aid in person, Vernestra finds herself pulled back into Coruscant's complicated world of Republic politics and underworld crime. As the two delve further into their investigation and the lines between Jedi and Republic business blur, Vernestra must reconsider what it means to serve for light and life. Jennifer, how do you feel about this book possibly answering some of the questions about how Vernestra ended up in the headspace that she did during the show, making the choices that she did during the show?
I think it's really helpful. I have not read the High Republic books, but I know you all have, and we've talked about Vernestra Rowe, and I had expectations of what the character was going to be like. That on screen, I'm like, well, this is not what I've heard about her. Excuse me. So I am interested to have kind of a bridge. And look, 16 to what, 160? Is that what you said?
Rough. 116, roughly. Yeah.
That's a long period of time. If I were to go back to when I was, a teenager, I've become hardened and jaded, right?
Yes.
So I'd like to see why. How has she been burned? How has maybe her hope or optimism kind of like she's had to become more pragmatic? And I like that Indara is in there. So she's a great character, and also it's a familiar name, which I'm like, okay, great. That's two characters I know to get me into this book. So yeah, I like this. I think it's important, especially if you have read the books, the High Republic books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm really excited about spending more time with Vernestra. I think she's a fascinating character in all of her facets, and I think I think we discussed this on our review. Maybe it was when we were talking with Alex and Molly, Ken. I can't remember that. A feeling of I would have loved to spend even more time with Vernestra and the sort of political story with Senator Raincourt. So this is answering to me that urge of like this blending of personal duty, personal vision with the larger needs of the Jedi Order and the danger of the Jedi Order becoming too tied to the Republic. They didn't end up being sort of a little bit of a connective tissue to the Phantom Menace. They ended up being this sort of decisive, for me, gut punch of Vernestra's decision at the end of the show to make that choice to frame Soul. So given how pivotal that part of the storyline was to the conclusion of season 1 of The Acolyte, I'm really hungry for more storytelling about those specific Jedi issues. How are you feeling about it all, Ken?
I love this log lines. I love it. I love this synopsis. I'm buying it. If this was a sports talk radio program, I'd say, I'm going to buy this, Joseph. This is great. Ding, 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 ding. No, I love this because I'm not as... Let me reframe this. I'm interested in knowing her and the stranger and those whiplashes and why he might be afraid of. I totally want that. And I think there's even more Leslie Headland interview stuff of her saying, I wish I could have got more of that into the show too as well. Well, hopefully we get a second season. I agree with that. But this is the big win for me. Going from, hey, I'm just out and about in my Jedi Volkswagen van listening to the Force as my only boss. I'm a way seeker, to recontextualizing, as she said, must reconsider what it means to serve light and life when the Republic and Jedi on Coruscant is key to that, and finding maybe not that she feels the call, maybe she does feel the call, and maybe that troubles her. I don't know. But that gap, that A to B gap, is what I'm way more interested in, and than former pupils and mistakes. I'm interested in how does a way seeker feel that, yes, this is where I am right now, or where I have to be, whether I want to be or not, mired in politics, playing the game. I'm excited by that pitch.
Yeah, what I really love about this is there's a lot of different ways to look at the Jedi Order and its various failures and choices that lead to the prequel era. But I love this specific tension that's been explored in lots of different places in publishing in particular. What is the balance between the big picture and the little picture? It's been explored in publishing, and it's a lot with Ahsoka too. That's what the recent novel Living Force is about. Of Qui-Gon basically says, like, you guys are sitting here in Coruscant shaping policy, and yes, in the big picture that helps large communities in theory if it's done well. But you've lost touch with going and helping individuals, going and helping small communities, small conflicts, just wandering through the galaxy, seeing who needs you? I think it's what Ahsoka, Ahsoka walking away from the Jedi Order and immediately just getting involved with Trace and Rafa and going, there are people in need and I should help them. And the people don't believe that the Jedi are there to just solve your problems, like real, like old school, like cat up a tree, fight with the neighbor. Let me help out. That's what I'm here for, to help out. So the fact that that seems to be the tension of this novel, of I was happy following my instinct to help individuals, small conflicts, and you brought me back here to get into the real macro policy shaping stuff. I love how much we're focusing on that question in terms of where should the Jedi Order pitch itself between the big conflict and the small conflict.
Yeah, no, that's and I'm curious, just again, what makes her feel that this ends up being the spot where she's called to, or needs to be, or stuck in it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the Acolyte had so many great ideas swirling around in it, and I think one that they made explicit early on was this idea that both the Jedi and the Coven believed that in order for an individual to contribute to a larger community and a larger purpose, they must be willing to sacrifice some part of themselves. You should be an individual, but you have to give up some things you might want as an individual to better benefit the whole. And that seems at stake in this plot, in this description, that Vernestra, for herself as a Jedi, wants to be out on the Outer Rim helping individuals. But is she going to need to sacrifice her personal joy, her connection, her sense of purpose in the Force to this, greater good of the Order and Republic? And is that going to make her a little bit bitter? Is it going to introduce to both her and Indara the idea that even within the Jedi Order, it's okay to lie for the greater good? You're so obsessed with the idea of the greater good that lies make that okay, because Indara really wants the lie about May starting the fire, and Vernestra covers up that lie with another lie about Soul. And I'm hoping that the book can get into that as well.
Yeah.
I was so interested in the juicy ideas I hadn't even thought about. Is there going to be anything about Chimere? Jen, in this book, would you want not necessarily answers, but even like Vernestra mentioning, like, I had a student that didn't go well once and I feel bad about it? Or like, do you want anything with Chimere?
I don't think so. Only because if we get a season 2, I would like it to be explained there. I want for the Acolyte writers to be able to have free reign and not be boxed in by what is said in the literature, because that can cause problems for people. And it just, I trust that they already have ideas. So unless there's going to be a sharing of those ideas, which I don't know, maybe there is, right? I'd rather have it revealed on screen.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't mind a nod to titillate people, but yeah, I don't want anything too boxed in. Ken was mentioning this. Jen, how do you feel about Justina Ireland writing this novel, given that she wrote Vern's earliest appearances, Test of Courage and Mission to Disaster, the things that really shaped the character? And then, we don't know if it was a great and smooth, relationship to live screen, or if there was a feeling like, oh, I invented this character and then I had to share her, but now I get to come back and put my spin on how she ended up where she is. How do you feel about all of that sort of creator dance within this shared story of Star Wars?
That's exactly what I was going to say. It does feel like a dance between the authors and the creators on screen. The Ahsoka of it comes to mind, right? Where everyone kind of has their own ideas. How can they make it work, make it feel cohesive, not step on each other's toes, allow people to tell the stories that they want to tell? So I think it's great that Justina Ireland is getting to revisit this character, because I believe that she has a ton of ideas of where this character, would end up. So let's let her do her thing. And I've just heard such great things about her as an author that this may be a book that I actually read. I don't know. I really want to dive in, because I know people are so passionate about the High Republic. There's got to be a reason why, right? So I'd like to find out why. Yeah.
This seems like a really great one-off too. It's in the High Republic era and it connects to the Acolyte and all great stuff. Yeah, I think it's great that this is the nature of Star Wars storytelling. I think both collaboration and personal vision are really good. I think it's a balance between those. I think, like we've seen with Filoni, like I think there were some early efforts to share Ahsoka, and I think he's, in my opinion, and this is not a criticism, come around to like, I love that character, and I really want to take the lead, and there haven't been any moments of bumps or controversy with it, but Kevin Scott's a fantastic writer, and he's got characters who are like, I'm telling the story of Keith Trennis, being I think it's totally natural that some authors end up being like,
yes,
I am the primary storyteller of this character, and I will be good, and I will collaborate, and I will share when I have to, but also I love them. I put myself in them. I speak to them. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So I'm really happy for Justina Ireland to be able to, yes, and the storytelling of Vernestra in the television show.
Yeah, imagine if Joseph, I was to come to you and go, Joseph, can I take your squirrel character and do a play in the future? You'd be like, sure, but I wrote, it's my guy, it's my squirrel. Like, I don't begrudge any author for having ownership, or any creator. Looking at Dave and Ahsoka, as you mentioned. Yeah. I don't begrudge any of them being like, hey, I have some thoughts. George Lucas even is like, I still have some thoughts. Yeah, $4 billion may have removed me, but I still have some thoughts on this. It's just natural. And I want to hear the thoughts, even if they're not always taken into account. And that includes Dave, George, anyone. But I'm sure Justina Ireland might have had a bit of, mixed bag of emotions. Oh, my gosh, my character's going to make that leap. Chuck Wendig had that. Like, hey, they took Cobb Vanth. It's 90% of what I did in there. There's some things that are a little different, but that's rare. I remember him tweeting out back in the day. When Cobb Vanth showed up, he's like, this is rare. I'm really happy for this. And now imagine him if he was to get a chance to go back and maybe fill in some of the blanks, maybe take him to Mos Pelgo again and just kind of explore some of him as a sheriff there. So I'm excited for Justina Ireland to get a chance to not take the character back, but just to like build alongside the show.
Yep. And also important news, there is a vintage Cobb Vanth deluxe figure coming, and I will be purchasing it.
I did see that.
Anyway, moving on to the Yord and Jecki book. This was clearly planned with full knowledge that they would meet quick, brutal ends. So how do we feel about that, about this ongoing Star Wars truth that death does not mean the end for storytelling? Jennifer, how do you feel about the Kenobi tradition of you meet a character who dies, that doesn't mean the storytelling is over when it comes to Yord and Jecki?
This is an example of where it needed to be released sooner, if at all possible, right? Because the Yord Horde and the Jecki Jam people are really hungering. They're craving.
Hungry like the wolf.
Yeah, they are craving for these characters. And imagine walking through Target and you see the book or whatever. What is this? Yeah, book.
Yeah.
You see the book and it's like, there's my characters that I love so much. I'm just going to pick that up along with some eggs, right? Like that to me is capitalizing on the timing.
I'm only getting fragile things at Target today. Eggs.
I swear to God.
And young Jedi who will die.
Yeah.
Wine glasses.
I'm like juice boxes, T-shirts, and a Star Wars book, and maybe some action figures too. Which the shelves look really bare. Let me tell you that
they are.
But this is what I will say on your previous point. We've come a long way from where we were before with the different canons. Remember Canon A, Canon B. Right. Remember all that with George? It was like George
canon. Yeah.
Yeah, like it was his thing, right? And he would like, you authors can go off and do your things, but I'm the ultimate, last sayer. Now it really feels like they're trying to have everyone come together and play nicely and share the toys, right? It's like, let's make a cohesive story. So I like that. I really, really like this era where they're making an effort to make it consistent.
Yeah, I agree. Ken, what are your Yord and Jecki thoughts?
I love them, and the loss of them hurts, and that was one of the things I loved about the show. I was meaning that it was a hurt so good, and wow, there was some great loss in the series. I loved it, loved the characters. I'm excited for this book. Like I said, that YA label is, I don't know, it's just bad advertising for some great stories in Star Wars. People just look down on those, thinking they're not for them. And again, why wouldn't you? Young adult. I'm 70. Why would I want that? They're just, I don't know. They're just sleek stories to me, these YA novels. Maybe it's because I'm a one-syllable guy. They just get right to the point. They cut to the quick, and they get right to where they want to go. And I'm excited to explore Yord and Jack before this because the relationship was really interesting. That was part of the pain. I would also, definitely take an audiobook in which Daphne Keane and Charlie Barnett read their characters in there. Let's just do that. It might turn into an audio drama or a stage play, but I really do love what they brought to the show. I think Charlie Burnett was one of the best performers in the show. Daphne King, great as well. Wonderful fights. But take us up to that sad point. It's only going to hurt even more. Jen, on the rewatch, you're going to read this book, you're going to rewatch the series, and you're going to cry. You're going to cry harder this time.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
I hope that I don't need every Star Wars book to explain things, but I hope this book is called "What's Wrong with Yord." And it details an adventure that Yord and Jackie have together that makes you go that guy's a little not. We don't vibe. We don't vibe. They were so charming, so interesting. But I think what was so interesting about them was that to see these two young people trying to make sense of the Jedi Order at a time where the Jedi Order was just starting to shift a little bit. And I love how much Yord wasn't just like a rule following, Jedi cop, and I think he did and said a lot of the things that made it feel a little bit more one-to-one with real-world cops, because he had that sort of rigidity and that certainty that he was right and he was the law and everybody had to listen to him. But also the way that his leaning into the rules seemed to mask his own fear of, if I follow the rules and do everything right, then nothing can ever go wrong. That sort of fear-based leaning toward rigidity. And Jackie also always feeling like she'd really absorbed Jedi doctrine and should be very rigid and very emotionally disconnected, but could not stop herself from being extremely intuitive, extremely emotionally connected. So exploring those characters who are, experimenting with these extremes of what the Jedi Order can be in that time is what sounds really exciting to me.
Poor Yord.
Poor Yord. Poor Yord. And hey, maybe we'll even spend more than one scene with his Padawan.
Yeah, one of the great mysteries. But she's got to be thankful. She's like, I was supposed to be on that spaceship. I woke up late that day and I did not go seek out.
Maybe this young adult book will be framed as a story told at a memorial for Yord and Jackie. And anyway,
so good. Anyway.
Final question here about all the publishing. We're thrilled to have this publishing. The publishing is great, and we certainly don't know if Acolyte is going to be renewed for a season 2 or not. As a lot of people were pointing out on social media recently, it was a long gap between Ahsoka season 1 and the renewal of Ahsoka season 2. Sometimes decisions are being made behind the scenes, and I think sometimes Star Wars Lucasfilm is waiting for the right moment to make a splash with the announcement. So we really don't know if there'll be a season 2 or not. But Jen, if the Acolyte didn't get renewed for a second season, how would you feel about the story continuing forward movement in publishing?
I would be devastated. I'd be devastated. Ken, you've talked about Kira, right? And how we have gotten her in the comics? Is that correct?
And books, lots of
books, right?
Yeah.
It's just not the same. I want to see Emilia Clarke back in the character as Kira on screen. I would be really upset. Come on, Lucasfilm. We don't have Ewan McGregor that is going to take all the budget with his salary, right?
Sorry.
Like, make it happen.
Allegedly.
Yeah, I would be really upset. I mean, the characters are great, but what makes it great is the ensemble cast on screen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which there isn't. There isn't. Probably the biggest payday would have been Carrie-Anne Moss, and I don't think she's in season 2 unless there are specific flashbacks needed. My first choice would absolutely be a second season. But if it was clear that for whatever reason a second season wasn't happening, I really want this story to move forward because, like I said, I really enjoyed the first season, but it feels just a little incomplete. It feels like the first season to me felt like a great first chapter, but I feel like Osha and May are still staring off into the horizon. And I think the show is so much about, are you just trapped in a destiny or do you have choice? And I want to see the choices that Osha and May are able to make in these new positions. I think Osha and May in some way were the main characters of the show, but because exactly what happened to them, exactly what motivated them was a bit of a mystery for a long time, and the fact that in the story they were used as pawns, it made me feel like I want to spend time with those two. I want the story to be all about them. So it's almost a show where the supporting characters shine so brightly that we've spent all our time talking about Yord and Jecki and Sol and Mother Anasea and May and Osha. I want their story, and I want it to move forward. And my first choice by far is the second season. But if not, at least give me a novel to continue their journey. Ken?
Yeah, I'm with both of you on excellent points here. I think we all want a second season. I'd love to see this explored, and whether or not that's going to happen. You know, it's the business side of it, and we're here to talk. Part of our discussion is the business. We're here to talk about that, but I think sometimes it dominates. Being around San Diego Comic-Con, where most conversations began with the business side, you know, and that's depressing. I'd rather just talk about the stories, but that means we also need to know the stories are coming. I hope this is a second season. I'm with you, Joseph. If not, a book or a book series based off the treatments of Leslie Headland or something like that, I would take it because I do want to know. But also, I'm with you, Jen. This is not to slight all the great authors that helped bring Kira back. Charles Soule leading the charge on bringing her to the comics. I thought that was good stuff. I have not. I have the Kira novel,
Crimson Climb. Yeah.
Crimson, and that is that's a Johnston, right? That's a Johnston book, right? She wrote that.
Yep.
Yeah, I have that. So no slight, and also I think in Outlaws, we think we're anticipating a Kira, at least Crimson Dawn is.
Oh yeah.
I think she is confirmed. Yeah,
is confirmed. I want to make sure. And Jen,
Yes.
I know I speak to you. I want to make sure, not disparaging that.
No.
I love that because we love that we've spent a lot of 10 years here diving into all these. Kenobi as a teenager, all this. I love all of it. I was in watching Solo this past couple of days in chunks. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Emilia Clarke. Have been since 2011. Mike Khaleesi, got it. But taking that aside, I just love what she brought, and it only scratched the surface. Mm-hmm. God, it's not quite that where us and specifically you, Joseph, leading into the announcement or the reveal of a Kenobi movie / show was. I remember you were so right to say you have the perfect actor at the perfect time, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You have it.
Right.
Do this. I think we're in that era with Emilia Clarke, and I really would love to have that character come back and see her on the screen performing it. But failing that, I got a lot of books and comics and video games to explore a great character. So I'd be open to Acolyte Season 2 in book form, but I really do hope it gets the second season at once.
Yeah, I think we've all talked about before that we love the publishing side, and it is not less than, but a simple truth is more people see, more people experience live action, and that kind of gives it a little bit of weight. And also I think there is a power in, we started this story in live action. I would love to finish this story in live action if at all possible.
Yes.
Thank you, Ken, for cleaning up. I have nothing but respect for our authors, really, I like the stories that they tell are what inspires not just stories on screen, but other writers and artists and things like that. But for me personally, with the Acolyte, like you said, Joseph, because it started on screen, I would question why we're not getting a second season. Like, come on, like this show is so important. And I think that the fan base is there. It caused a lot of conversation online. Look, engagement, whether it's good or people hating on it, is engagement. And that is really important. And so I would hope that they would continue it. But yeah, I'd love a trilogy, a book series, and I want it to be really fantasy. I'd love to see like some cool covers, maybe some maps. I don't know. I think really it could be really fun, right? It could be really fun. But yeah, I really hope we get a second season.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, the maps made me think of. Can we show Plagueis' little sneaky tunnels for his peeping tunnels?
Star Wars books do need more fantasy maps, man. I do love a book with a map.
They really do.
And Jen,
really do.
No one would think.
Covers.
Yeah, no one would think you're disrespectful, other than the staff of the Union Station, who are like, "Why is that lady dancing here right now?"
They put up barriers. They put up barriers now where people cannot. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Anyways,
One woman dances in Union Station. Now barriers are up. How dare
Well, it was a great video, but Jennifer will continue her dance in publishing form. Look for the Jennifer dances at Union Station zine coming soon to your door. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with a great question from a patron back in a moment. And we are back. We've had a ton of fun discussing breaking publishing news related to the Acolyte and the reign of the Empire. And we have a great question from a patron on Patreon about one of the biggest moments, one of the most visually striking moments in the Acolyte. This question comes from Robert Meadows. He says, "Greetings all. Why didn't Anakin's lightsaber bleed to red when he ignited it to kill younglings or when he fought Obi-Wan? Obviously, the realistic answer is that bleeding a lightsaber crystal wasn't an idea when George was making Revenge of the Sith, but that's a boring answer. Do you all have any in-universe idea? Because I'm honestly stumped. Anakin seemed to be channeling a lot of anger and hate in those scenes." I saw on my vacation a short video from our friend Alex Damon about this, offering some theories and ideas. I love this question because, Jennifer, I don't think this is just a question about why didn't Anakin's turn. I think it's also a question about why did the crystal change with Osha in that way? Since I don't think, a different sentient beings, manipulating, torturing sentient crystals in a fantasy story necessarily needs to be entirely universal. It can be about the character and the person and the situation that they're in and all that. So where does your mind go with why the crystal, when Anakin bled the crystal as Vader, it was a process and it didn't just change in Revenge of the Sith, but the crystal did seem to be tortured into response by Osha's actions in the moment in the Acolyte. How do you account for that?
My mind is so linear that when I saw it, I was like, yay, we finally are seeing this on screen, right? That's how I initially thought it. And then without even really looking at the canon aspect of it, I just kind of was like, oh, she's made a deliberate choice and it has involved a Jedi Master. And therefore, that is like this kind of, I don't want to say ritual, but it's like, it's the mark, the line in the sand that she has now officially crossed. Now, you could say, well, look, Anakin killed a bunch of younglings. Why didn't it turn then, right? But for me, I'm like, it's about like stealing the saber, right? And then killing the Jedi Master and then stealing the saber. But I don't know. I'm sure that there's some canon out there in the comics that says exactly why this has happened. I don't know.
Nope. I don't
really?
think so yet. No, I mean, the comics established, and for me, it's a little bit of what's going on. The comics established that it's sort of like a ritual. I haven't read it in a while, but when Vader does it, it is to prove that he has rejected the light. And it's a battle. It is him rejecting any call to the light. So for me, I agree with Robert. We always talk about, the real answer is it's the new idea. But the headcanon in the storytelling is much more fun. And I think we can find riches in diving into this. And I think for me, I definitely have some thoughts for Anakin, but I wanted to start with Osha. And I really agree with you, Jennifer. I think it's about what is in the character's mind. Why do they think they're doing what they're doing? What are they actually choosing? And Osha rejected her anger, her pain, her trauma, because she thought it would make her not a Jedi. She thought wallowing in the anger, in the fear, and the trauma and the pain would lead to the dark side. And it was blocking her from using her power at all, even in an innocuous way to save herself when she was trying to call Pip to her hand in the first episode. So I feel like when the truth comes out, it is a choice to give in to the dark side explicitly, to say, I'm done fighting it. I'm going to let it flood in. I'm going to take it all and pour it into Soul's throat. And I think it isn't just that she's holding the blade and it's cracked, so maybe the crystal is more exposed. There's some kind of crunchy stuff like that. But it's also fun for me to think of like what specifically is going through Osha's mind of, this man promised me a dream. He handed me this blade and said it meant one thing, and he betrayed and lied to me about what it meant. How much is she thinking about that blade? And how much is that helping to make the change in the crystal in that moment? I think Anakin's steps are a little bit different than that, very active. I've been holding back the dark side and I'm letting it out, is I think what Osha is choosing. I feel like if you look at Revenge of the Sith, Anakin is lying to himself. I think Anakin is saying, I am going to use some of the tactics and the powers of the dark side to get what I want, which is to save Padme. In order to save Padme, I need to give in to the darkness and I need to do these awful things. But as soon as they're done, I'll just go save Padme and I'll kill the Emperor and everything will be great. I think he's kind of lying to himself about giving in to the dark side and trying to convince himself that these are just tactics. This is just a move, even though the acts he's taking are truly awful and truly of the dark side, that he isn't letting the dark side in his heart yet. And the fact that in the Vader comics, the bleeding is a rejection of light is like, there's a part of Anakin that's fighting this, that's fighting falling to the dark side. And he has to actively grab that crystal and go, I'm killing it. I'm killing it all. I'm killing Anakin. I'm killing all hope of light. Final thought for me, and then I want to kick it back to you, Ken. The other part of this that's fun for me is crystals are unique. And that is the hero's blade. That is the Skywalker crystal with this long and storied history. Maybe that crystal is stronger. Maybe that crystal is saying, no, you're not doing this to me, because it isn't that crystal he successfully bleeds. It's when he steals from a fallen Jedi Master that he killed, whose name I can never remember. Anyway, Ken, those are some of my thoughts. Where do you go?
Jedi Master Infila? It's been a while.
Keurig Infila?
Anyway, something like that. He didn't have a shirt on. That's all I remember. I love what you're both saying here, and I do want to start with this. Let me say this. Robert is right. It didn't exist in 2005 is a boring answer, but also right now I think it is a right enough answer to mention again because of the way discourse goes, that D word, discourse, where you have people legitimately fighting against a series in 2024 by saying, look at this, Anakin didn't even do it there. And it's like, well, yes, because it didn't exist. So you can't, it validates your argument. Why don't you find out a reason why there might be a difference? Why don't you explore that? Why don't you have fun with that? One example of that is 2005, the death of the younglings and Sors Bandim, the youngster there. It is a heart-wrenching moment. I, along with others, I'm not alone in this, and I can't remember if we've discussed in detail here, Joseph, when we're doing our scene by scene. Maybe we have, maybe we haven't. But to me, that is Anakin facing down his past. It's a kid that almost looks like him. But the reality is, if you listen to Jamie Stangroom's interview with Ross Beedman, who's the actor who was Sors Bandim, he got picked like on the day. So there wasn't a casting call for young Anakin-like kid. It was like, you can say a line, right? You could talk. Got it. You're from extra. You get a voucher. You're SAG eligible now, kid. Get right here. That's the boring reality. But the answer to me was always been like, Anakin's looking at himself. And Joseph, really what you're saying. He's conflicted, but also he's trying to save Padme. He wants to. I'm just gonna dip my toe into the waters here. Don't worry. I'm still gonna, maybe I'll smile. Don't worry about it. I'll be a Jedi and one night a Sith here. He's conflicted. He's conflicted. He's fallen for the lie, and he falls. He becomes this cyborg, not by choice, but well, unless you count, not listening to I Have the High Ground there. And he's saved, and he's saved unnaturally. He should have died. Palpatine cannot let him go, and in the end, glad he didn't, because that helped save the galaxy in the end. But he's conflicted, and that stuff in the wonderful comic series by Charles Soule was exactly what you're saying. It's Palpatine going, all right, buddy, go prove it. Do what you're supposed to do. Take a blade from a Jedi you have slain and pour all your hate into it and commit. Osha's committing in that moment. And I like what you're saying about, hey, they've got a little bit of a cracked crystal. Or maybe the hero blade is a little stronger. Maybe the crystal's a little stronger. I can follow those paths as well, Joseph. I think those are good observations and thoughts. But at the end of the day, Jen's going back to one of the reasons you love this series. That's a triumph for Osha in a lot of ways. That is her committing fully, and all the hate bleeds into the blade. And I think that's the difference for me right now until something comes out that answers otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I love what you're saying, Ken, about let's be aware that sometimes things that end up having great meaning just by analyzing the text weren't always even intended. Like I've said, David Lynch is one of my favorite artists, and he believes totally in intuition. You get the idea and you follow your instinct. And sometimes he will say, I know exactly what it means. And sometimes like, it was right for the idea. I did it. And there's I can't remember where, there's a great conversation with Laura Dern where Laura Dern's talking about it, saying, hey, I saw all these things in the film we made, and they make perfect sense for what the story is about. And David Lynch just says, that must have been why I did that, because I was just following my intuition. It wasn't, and that to me is a way of saying, like, I don't know. Sometimes with things like this, people can, if something maybe doesn't match because storytelling is happening across a span of time, to me, that's a gift, not a curse. I grew up not knowing what the Clone Wars were. I grew up not knowing, how the Falcon worked, or all sorts of stuff that was fun to imagine and discuss. It's a gift. And to me, this is a gift. These are fun and interesting ideas of how does falling to the dark side work? What is the relationship with the crystal and the person? I feel like, this difference between Osha and Anakin to me is fascinating. The idea of, are you doing a crime because you're like, the world is awful and doing crime is good, and I get up every morning and I want to do crime? Or are you going, I'll do a crime to save my wife. I don't really care about the crime. I'm not thinking about the crime. It's just a thing I have to do to save my wife. Which is, I think, a really interesting distinction in the emotional space that both these characters are in my opinion.
The differences between things, or the perceived differences between points in Star Wars stories or lore, it's a thought starter. It's a possibility. I really do like that approach. Yeah, I could understand if they were like, oh, turns out, I don't know, Luke was 45 in The New Hope, but he wasn't 19. I understand. It's a little different to me than Ki-Adi-Mundi's birthday, a character on the side that 90% of the general Star Wars public doesn't even know. I understand if you have a little bit of like, hey, I don't like that. But to Robert's thing of like, bleeding the crystal didn't exist in 2005 being the boring answer. Again, I agree. But I think the more boring approach is lore. It's such a constrictive thing. Yes, we don't want facts stepped on, but we can explore the emotions. We can explore the themes and those differences. Between those differences just lies a world of story possibilities and different interpretations that you can gravitate towards. And I love exploring that kind of stuff.
Yeah, very much agreed. Jennifer, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I love, excuse me. What I loved about Amandla Stenberg's performance is she gave it everything right there. I don't need to dissect anything or look back at lore. What she did is that, the looks that she gave was like this total like resignation and giving into the dark side, right? It's like you're saying, she just finally embraced it. And it was an internal like conflict that was, so we saw it being resolved in that moment. And I like that. To me, it's a much more realistic idea of how one would fall to the dark side, as opposed to it being like this ritual where I sit down in my mask and I'm going to pull all my anger into it, raw, right? That's such like
wait a minute, Jen, how does it go again? How does Vader sound?
It's just like this, like bro, like idea. I'm going to get my crystal and I'm going to bleed it, man.
God bless you. God bless you.
Right? To me, that's like not how the majority of our lives are. It's more like Osha, where it's like, oh no, I have totally let this thing consume me. I cannot go back. I'm going for it, and I've now crossed that line. That to me is what I loved so much about the scene, and why I went, oh my gosh, like when she was bleeding the blade to red. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's my bro, my bro Vader.
It's really funny, but I also I want to make a joke out of it, but it's also a good point that I think one of the most interesting things about this is it's individuals manipulating a sentient crystal. It is not going to work the same for everyone, and I love the idea that maybe for somebody more intuitive and emotional, it works this way. And it's it's like intuitive people bleed crystals like this. Bros bleed crystals like this. Is both funny and like maybe that's the answer. Is it works differently for different individuals and different crystals because they're all unique.
And like you said with Anakin, there is that conflict. He is lying to himself that he is doing the right thing. And so it's kind of muddied until he finally does make that deliberate act in the comics, as you're saying, right? So whereas Osha, it's like, no, it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear what's happening. So she's not lying to herself anymore.
Nope. So very fun question and a very fun discussion about bleeding crystals. I'm sure it's not our last. We are going to wrap it up. Ken, do you want to take us home?
I do. I want to take us home to Bergen, Norway. We'll be there for the rest of our life. Now, we are ForceCenter Pod, ForceCenter. We are on social media, ForceCenter Pod. Look for us on Instagram as well. Facebook page is ForceCenter Podcast. And as a podcast, we are available in a lot of spots. Just search. You'll find us in the ever-changing landscape of podcasts. Merch available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter, where I think we should now have a shirt that says, "Bro, I'm bleeding my crystal, bro." And patreon.com/ForceCenters where you can support us directly. From there, get into our Discord with a wonderful community of Star Wars fans there. Our Force Center friends are going strong. You can follow me at Ken Napzok. Go to my website, kennapzok.com for ticket information. I will be in Little Rock, Arkansas with Mark Ellis starting October 7th through the 10th. I think we got like 5 or 6 shows. A lot of fun out there to be had. And a big show I'm really excited for. I got a new bit I wrote just for this show that I'm going to debut there on August 16th. Joseph Scrimshaw's comedy variety show about aging, horror years old, is going to be great. Joseph's going to tell you a little bit more information. But Joseph, it even has a prop. It has a prop.
You're bringing the prop comedy. All right.
Bringing props in.
Is it 7-Eleven underwear?
It will be now. It will be now. But it's going to be a lot of fun. So that's my story. Jen, where can they find and follow you?
You can find me at Jennifer Landa on all the social media sites and TikTok at Jennifer Landa 1138 bruh, which by the way, my daughter, the kids apparently say bruh all the time. Bruh.
Okay.
Hey, bruh. It's funny to me as an 80s kid.
Yeah. Yeah, bro. Joseph, we're glad to have you home safe and sound. You deserve the trip, as you and Sarah and her family did. But glad you're here. Take us home where they can find and follow you. More information on that birthday show.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be home. You can find me on all the social media at Joseph Scrimshaw, new TikTok series of the different ways that different people bleed their crystals and what it says about your Briggs-Myers score. Joking, not going to do that. Anyway, you can find me at this show Friday, August 16th, 7:30 p.m. at the Lyric Hyperion here in Los Angeles. You can get tickets to come to the show live, or you can get tickets to watch the live stream anywhere where you have internet. Like Ken said, it's called Horror Years Old. It is the night before a big birthday for me, so I am trying to celebrate in a big way. So if you are at all interested, grab those tickets and come and join us. There's going to be lots of different great things like Ken with props. Friends of the show, Hal Lublin and Audrey Kearns are going to be there. I'm going to play a film that I haven't played live that Ken's partner Grace is in as well. So lots of great things to see at the show. You can find the links to those tickets on my website, josephscrimshaw.com. That is it. The news has broken.